Taking a closer look now at one of our top stories, and Mayor Mark Sutcliffe issuing a call for help from other levels of government. Sutcliffe says OC Transpo is facing an operating deficit of $140 million a year over the next 3 or 4 years. He says without funding, Ottawa taxpayers could see tax hikes, fare increases, or more service cuts. And we're joined now by Ottawa Mayor Mark Sutcliffe. Thank you very much for coming in. So we know that OC Transpo is facing a financial crisis. That's not new. That's been the case for several years now. So why today are you coming out to issue this plea?
A couple things, Katie. First of all, we've been solving that financial crisis on our own for a long time without help from other levels of government, and we're running out of options. We've done all kinds of things to manage the transit budget, but I want to point out the basic inequity in how finances are managed by the provincial and federal governments, and the fact that Ottawa doesn't get its fair share of funding. There's been an enormous shift in burden from the federal and provincial governments to the City of Ottawa and to local taxpayers. We're paying a disproportionate share of costs for transit compared to other cities like Toronto. So in Toronto, when they build a new transit project like a light rail system, the provincial government pays 100% of the capital cost for that. In Ottawa, they pay 22% and we pay 56%, and that just isn't fair. So going forward, we need a fair deal for the people of Ottawa so that they're not paying a disproportionate amount of money for their services compared to other cities.
You have said one of the consequences could be that if Ottawa does not get the money that you're looking for, that you might not be able to open stage 2 of LRT. One of the parts of that set to open later this summer. Is that really going to happen, that you're going to pull the plug on a system that's, construction is well underway, that once it's done, you're just going to lock it up and say, nope, sorry, we can't afford to run it?
That's not what we want to do, but what I'm pointing out is we can't afford the transit that we've built. We built this system in good faith. We did it with the expectation that each level of government would pay 1/3 of the cost. And what's ended up happening is we're paying more than half the cost on our own, almost 60%. The other levels of government are paying 20 to 22% each. And we can't afford to run the transit system we have now. We have a $140 million hole in our transit budget for the next 3 or 4 years. And we need help from other levels of government, or we're going to face some very, very tough decisions as a city in the next year.
Something else you raised today was the cut in payments in lieu of property taxes by the federal government. So how important is that money for the city, and how do you want the city to then be compensated?
It's hugely important. So imagine if I said to Ottawa property taxpayers, you get to pick every year how much you pay to the City of Ottawa. I'm sure people would love that, but that's not very realistic. The federal government gets to decide every year how much it pays to the City of Ottawa for the properties that it owns and operates in the city. Obviously, the federal government owns a lot of real estate in Ottawa. They're the largest property owner in the city. 8 years ago, they were paying us $194 million a year. This year, they're paying us $164 million. Our math estimates that we're being underpaid by about $95 million a year because the federal government decides every year to pay us less and less. And that just isn't fair. It's transferring the burden of municipal services for federal buildings onto local taxpayers. So we need them to pay their back taxes like any other property owner, and we need them to guarantee going forward that they're going to keep paying us at the right level.
Okay. Before this, had you raised any of these issues with the Prime Minister, with the Premier?
Absolutely. I've been talking to the Premier and the Prime Minister and to cabinet ministers at both levels of government for months about this, and they've been receptive to what we've had to say, but I'm speaking publicly because there is a sense of urgency about this now. We're heading into our 2025 budget process. We need to make some decisions, and we need help from other levels of government, or we will face rising property tax increases. We're going to face having to hike transit fares, or we're going to have to cut services like public transit to cover this shortfall. Unlike other levels of government, we're not allowed to run a deficit. So we have to have a balanced budget, and right now there's a $140 million hole in the budget, and it's not because of us. Local taxpayers have been paying more than their fair share to date. It's because the other levels of government need to do more for Ottawa. They need to do what they do for other cities.
Okay. A lot of people will be waiting for the response to see how this plays out. Thank you very much for coming in tonight.
My pleasure, Katie. Thank you.